Good morning, United, and welcome to this lesson on the conventional family. So today we're going to be covering these two main learning objectives. So we have identify and explain what is meant by the conventional family, and you're going to evaluate the existence of the conventional family and their role in today's society. So you're doing now is on the screen. So for bronze you have what do you remember about Oakley's view on the family? How different is Oakley's view on the family to Young and Wilmot's? And consider the possible criticisms of both the feminist and the functionalist view when it comes to family. So pause the video, choose one of these questions and answer them, and then we will reflect and I'll share some ideas as well. Okay, now that you've gone through each one, if we start off with the first one, what do you remember about Oakley's view on the family? So Anne Oakley is a feminist. Now already you should begin to think about what feminists' views are and how we can apply it to the family in general. So what Oakley would say about the family is that she would argue that the family is typically patriarchal and that it fulfills the main needs of the husband, and that women are often oppressed and may be overwhelmed with the amount of housework in which they are expected to do. So men would be the breadwinners and women would be the caregivers typically, and this sort of pressure can grow into women doing either the double shift or the triple shift if they choose to pursue a career. Okay, so unfortunately, Anne Oakley may take a dim view of the family at the moment and the family structure and suggest that women are oppressed or that men seem to reap the benefit of that sort of power imbalance. If we look at the silver, how different is it to Young and Wilmot? We should know that Young and Wilmot were the sociologists who suggested that the family was symmetrical. Now Anne Oakley disagreed with this notion, but the symmetrical family, as a reminder, is going to be a family in which there are equally shared conjugal roles. They may be different conjugal roles, but they're equally shared. Okay, and a feminist would be different towards that because, again, they would argue that the family is not symmetrical and that there is still a dichotomy, okay, or a binary which exists, which means opposite. So men will do minimal work and women will do the majority of the housework at home. So it in fact is not symmetrical. Lastly, consider the criticisms of the feminists and the functionalists and explain which one is plausible. Plausible means which one is most reasonable, which one is most believable, which one makes most sense. And this can be down to you, but I'll mention one or two criticisms for each one. So one criticism for the functionalist view of the family is that they often exaggerate the level in which the conjugal roles are now shared. So, for example, if we look at their argument about the family being symmetrical and what Young and Wilmot argued, they said that men are now doing a lot more within the household and it is virtually equal. However, their threshold for what was considered equal was doing the dishes once or twice a week. Again, which is nowhere near going to be enough of an action to suggest that the family is now symmetrical. So again, the threshold or the criteria used to determine what was equal and what wasn't was incorrect, and it was flawed. Okay. Also, Charter said that the new man, which is apparently in emergence of, the new man, which is, the notion that there are men in this generation who are more helpful and more sort of, giving within the household, that is in fact false. So again, that was another argument or another weakness of this idea. Now, if we look at the feminist argument that the family isn't symmetrical, we can criticize a feminist view because they will often disregard actual progress made. Now, albeit the family may not be symmetrical, however, progress is being made with men doing more housework in the home or contributing in one way, shape or another, which is a positive thing. Change won't happen overnight and it can take generations for this to be consistent. So again, feminists can often be criticized for overlooking the positives and focusing on only the negatives when it comes to change within the family. So, a conventional family is defined according to Anne Oakley as the typical nuclear family, which is going to be legally married couples who voluntarily choose to have children. Okay, so again, this reinforces the idea that the main family, or a conventional, which is a typical family, will be the nuclear family. Okay, now try and name about 5 or 6 family types if you can, just to recall and see what you can remember. But again, with regards to the bronze, silver and gold, for bronze you should be having that a nuclear family is the main type of conventional family. The relationship is going to be where there's a agreement of marriage and also an agreement of being parents. So again, there's no sort of compulsion or force. And would a childless couple be included in this definition? No, it wouldn't be included in this definition as a conventional family. It will be a type of family and a form of diversity of families, but it wouldn't be considered a conventional family. So, what we'd like you to do is read the extract of page 110, make notes on key points, and again, go through the bronze, silver, or gold tasks. Okay, so bronze, silver, or gold. Now, the bronze one, the question relates to what are the main features of a conventional family, which is fairly straightforward. I think all of you should be going for gold, to be honest. If you look at silver, what role would canalization play? So let's remind ourselves of what canalization is, which is again going to be the idea that children are given toys, or they're kind of channeled towards their gender roles and gender expectations through clothing, behavior, and so on. And lastly, evaluate the conventional family from this extract from a Marxist, functionalist, and feminist perspective. So again, pause the video, have a read, and have a go at answering this question. Okay, so again, if we look at the extract and we go through it together as a reflection task after you've done what I've asked. So Oakley points out that the conventional family is no longer the norm in statistical terms. Despite this, the idea of conventional family life is a powerful one in society. The following are central to the idea of the conventional family. The family members have different roles based on their age, occupation, and gender. Women are expected to work inside the home without pay, while men are expected to work for pay outside the home. Oakley identifies social class differences in people's views on gender roles. Working class couples are more likely to hold a traditional view of gender roles than middle class couples. Some families do not conform fully to the conventional pattern, for example, when men carry out domestic tasks such as playing with children. So again, we should know, if you're going to go for bronze, that the main features of the conventional family is that every member of the family has their own role-based expectations based on their age, occupation, gender, and so on. Also, again, there's going to be a clear difference between who is the breadwinner and who is the caregiver. Men being the breadwinner, women being the caregiver. If we look at the role of canalization, if we look at the first bullet point, it tells you that members will have different roles based on their age, occupation, and gender. So it is likely that that element of gender, children will have different roles and expectations within the household when growing up. There may be more pressure there may be more pressure for young girls growing up in a family to be the ones who are contributing or helping tidying up, whereas the brothers or the boys in the family may not feel this pressure. Okay, they may be given particular toys. Girls might be given pink dresses, pink clothing, or toys which would suit their gender expectations, such as Barbie or a kitchen. And boys would be given, again, toys which suit their nature, such as Action Man, or will be given clothing which is deemed more masculine. Okay, so again, these are the ways in which, our expectations manifest itself within a conventional family. And lastly, evaluate it from a Marxist, functionalist, and feminist perspective. So if you look at it from a Marxist perspective, we could argue that when it comes to social class, working class couples are more likely to hold traditional views of gender roles. Now, this traditional view of gender roles suits capitalism, as it ensures that the man is the one who is always going to work, and the wife is at home preparing and maintaining the household. Now, this is going to be a benefit to capitalism, according to Marxists, because when the man comes home after a long day of being exploited by the business owners and his bosses, he needs to be the man of the house, and he will have that level of control, and he will have that level of power in his life, which will then again help him carry on and sustain that level of exploitation in which he goes through. Okay, so by him having an arena whereby he is in control, he often will forget that he is of low level or of low class and in fact being exploited. Also, the woman will often act as an emotional sponge, and she will absorb all of the stress from her husband, making him ready to go to work the next day. Okay, and this again, according to Marxists, will help prevent a revolution or a rise from the masses. If we look at the middle class expectations, with regards to social class, they're going to be more egalitarian, meaning that again, the families will have more of an equal input. So there's more individual freedom for the children. The kids' views are listened to a lot more, and it is more likely for the man to also contribute to the household. Now, this will change over time. So we looked at stratified diffusion before. This will change over time, and as years go by, these sort of values and morals of equality within the household or shared conjugal roles will eventually simmer its way down to the working class. It's just a matter of time. If we look at this statement from a feminist perspective, they will disagree with the notion of the conventional family and argue that this notion or this understanding or this view is purely patriarchal, and again it feeds into the exploitation of women, unfortunately. Functionalists would argue or see that this balance of this framework works perfectly for the four main aims of the family to be fulfilled. Okay, so again, this breakdown of men going out to work, women being at home, it supports the socialization and the education of the children, and the family is best in this function. It works best in this form for children to sort of develop and progress, and also for the family to contribute to society. It works best in this sort of manner. Right. So now, what would I like to do? Think to yourself. Write down as many stresses you think someone may encounter if they are the sole caregiver / homemaker or breadwinner, and consider why these stresses exist and what the root causes are. Okay, and then you're going to bullet point these ideas, so you can do it in the table similar to this. So I'll give you a few minutes, pause the video, and then I'll just also mention at the end some possible ideas. Try and add at least 3 or 4 possible examples of stress. Okay, so if we look at the caregiver or homemaker, what possible stresses might they have? So firstly, it's going to be the expectation, okay, to maintain a clean and a running household. Okay, if you look at again the needs to be cooking every day for the family. Okay, 365 days of the year to cook every single day is going to be very, very tasking. Okay, to look after the children, to do the laundry, to clean the dishes, clean the house. If you have a big house again and you're one person, that's going to be a really, really big task. Sometimes a smaller house might be a bit more easier in general, but typically again, to maintain a household, it's really, really difficult. To wash the clothes, to do the ironing, to fold it. There's so many elements in which people overlook, which is a major, major stress. To care for the emotional well-being of their children, if their children come back home, or when they come back home from school. Okay, the husband or the breadwinner normally is still at work. They have to deal with again these sort of issues of maybe bad behavior. Okay, issues of homework. Okay, they may be the ones who have to come into school and deal with, or have kind of meetings with parents, meetings with teachers if again the child is misbehaving. So again, there's so many pressures in which you often overlook as a caregiver, or you often overlook when you're speaking to your parents, or where you see as to what they're doing at home. If you look at the breadwinner, so the husband has to provide for his entire life. If you base it on just these kind of typical standards, he has to work the majority of his life, unfortunately. He has to ensure that he has enough money to survive, to pay the rent, to pay the bills, put food on the table, go on holidays if you can. Okay, not only that, he will have stresses from the boss, that pressure from management to perform. If he underperforms, then again his job is at risk. Okay, also the need to sort of protect his family. Okay, and provide for your future, pay for your education if possible. So there's so many pressures, there's so many stresses of society that can be again really, really overwhelming. Right, so your independent task now. Alright, so on Show My Homework there should be a scan page uploaded. You are going to again read through page 11 and go for bronze, silver or gold. And you're going to answer this question based on which one you go for. And then you're going to put in your notes. Alright, so you're going to pause the video. I will not go through these answers with you, just the way you're going to need to be more independent now. And write down the answers based on the question which you go for. Okay, so pause the video. Spend about 15-20 minutes, I would say, on this task. And then try and go for the challenge. Which gender do you think suffers the most in a conventional nuclear family? And why? Alright, so pause the video. Spend 15-20 minutes. If you have any questions, put it on Show My Homework.